went to, there was in the careers library at the school I was at, there was a little brochure for management training at the ABC cinemas in Chester, my hometown. And so I thought, well, that'd be a nice little interim job, you know, it'll be interesting while I wait for a proper job. Yeah, I went there and I loved it. You know, it was a big cinema in Chester, and you know, they were playing some great movies. And at the time, this was in 1968. Sorry, 64. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, you know, there was about 50 staff, all calling me sir or Mr. Davidson. I was 16, and some very attractive usherettes. So I thought, life is good. And so I ended up, you know, I'd always had a love of cinema, but not in an intellectual way. I used to go to the cinema, and I didn't know one director from another, or didn't particularly know, you know, obviously you knew, you went to see the Alamo or something, you know John Wayne, but I wasn't, I'm still not, I'm a cineast. I just love entertainment, I love cinema. So, you know, when I got there and we were playing, you know, I was doing everything from selling ice cream to working in the cashier, the projection booth, just doing everything. And because I was an orphan, I was orphaned at 13, you know, they treated me very well. So I moved quite quickly. The cinema was fantastic in that it also had live shows. So it had all the big rock and roll and music acts played there. So everybody from the Stones to the Beatles to Martha Vandellas to Diana Ross to Tom Jones to Small Faces to Rod Stewart to Ray Charles to, you know, it was extraordinary. Because we had a huge stage and a proper proscenium, and they did a week of ballet there as well, and they had an old organ, a proper big old organ, a big orchestra pit. So you know, I was very, very lucky. It was fantastic. You know, so I was there from sort of 16 to 18 when they moved me with this in the circuit, the ABC cinemas, to Manchester, to the Deansgate, which was a smaller cinema, but there was a 70mm roadshow theatre where they you know, that every ticket was seated, 697 seats, and we played My Fair Lady for 45 weeks in and at that time, because you know the social hours are not, well, the hours are not particularly social, because you finish work at 11 o'clock at night. So I got to know, you know, some of the footballers and some of the local police, and I used to hang out with, you know, Manchester United and Manchester City guys, and a lot of police. And because also in those days, you know, I had short back and sides, I had hair then, short back and sides, and you know, people, you know, the guys on the doormen at the clubs used to think I was a copper because I dressed with the short back and sides. And those are the days when you got dressed in a tuxedo every night. At 6 o'clock, you would change into a tuxedo for the front of house of the cinema. Really? You know, so I gradually got to do some wonderful things. I worked in Manchester, but I went and did relief management around the Northwest, which was fantastic. And I had a marvelous time. But you know, I was highly paid as an assistant manager. You had to be 21 to hold a license for the cinema. So although I could run a cinema, the head projectionist or the head cashier were de facto, the over 21, and I was under 21. When I was coming up to 21, you had to apply for jobs, management jobs, and you could go anywhere in the country, and you were expected to apply for these jobs. But when I looked at them, they were all paid less. They didn't have a restaurant. We also used to do press screenings in Manchester. So, on a Monday and Tuesday, you'd have press screenings for the whole of the Northwest. And we used to rehearse the films. So at 11 o'clock at night, public would leave. At 11:30, we'd go up into the balcony with a case of beer and some sandwiches. And I'd invite half a dozen friends, and we'd watch these great movies before they'd been even shown to the press. And I'd get paid overtime. It was bliss. So I was reluctant to move to some flea pit. And then got very lucky. Just as I was coming up to 21, I was invited to London to apply for a job in their PR, their publicity department. And so in March of 1968, I got married for the first time. I moved to London, and I was 21. So it was quite a big month, March 1968.
What attracted you to publicity? Why did you apply?
I applied because it was in London, and I'd done, by virtue, there was a lot of local promotion, so even the first week I started at the ABC Cinema in Chester, they sent me around the high street dressed as Elvis Presley, ridiculous. But, in those days, you get a photograph on the front page of the local paper by doing stunts. We also had a very good interface with the press. In those days, the Guardian was the Manchester Guardian. And so, you deal, and the big, Michael Parkinson was on television, running the cinema program, which was 30 minutes every week on cinema. There was a guy called John Buttrey, who on the BBC used to do, it was called My Cinema. So that was 30 minutes interviewing with stars. We used to have a lot of people come up, artists, doing a regional tour back then. So I'd had a sort of taste of it. But also it was better, A, going to London at 21 years old, and B, not having to go to some flea pit, because there were some great cinemas, but there were some shocking cinemas at the back end of nowhere. And, you sort of almost have a bodyguard to take you into some of them. And you wouldn't go down to the stalls on a Sunday night, when the gangs used to come in through the back door. I think, fine, stay there. I'm not going down. And it was fantastic. I'd obviously gone down for the interview. I started down there in March, so I'd gone January, February for interviews. And the job was, I didn't realize how fantastic it was going to be, but the job was doing the television radio publicity for ABC Cinemas, but also for Warner Pathé, which was the distribution company that ABC had a joint venture with Warner's at that point, and Elstree Studios, which was thriving. So for the first time, I was involved with films during the production stage, during the distribution stage, and then the actual exhibition side. So that's unusual, I think. At 21, suddenly you're involved all the way through, not with a film, but I learned a lot about production publicity. We used to do what were called featurettes in those days, 16mm featurettes. They're now EPKs. But every single film that was shot at Elstree, we would shoot these featurettes using a well-known newscaster in the UK called Ivor Mills. And we used, I think Parky did some anyway, but Ivor Mills was the main one.
Press junket, I assume, too?
Sorry?
press junkets, or was it not?
No, no, it was only doing television and radio. We weren't dealing with the print at that point. So and I went to work for Michael Dalling. So to answer one of your questions, so Michael was my boss when I joined him, and our job was to deal with, Ulster Television and Anglia Television and Grampian Television. So, there was, I think, 13 independent. The independent television network was these 13 different territories. Scottish Television, Grampian Television. So, and in Ireland, there was north of the border, it was Ulster, and south of the border was Telford Éireann. So we had an amazing time because we could, we would go, I'd fly to Dublin, spend the night in Dublin, getting hammered with the local, TV guys, and then get on the train the following morning, have a fantastic Irish breakfast, and get off in Belfast and do the same thing with the Ulster Television. And nobody ever knew where we were. I went to Manchester, back to Manchester on a trip, and we were releasing Bullets at the time, and I persuaded Parkinson and the cinema program to do a show, 30-minute show, so it's a network show on chase movies. So as a 30-minute about promoting Bullet. But I also persuaded them to do 30 minutes on Steve McQueen.
Sure.
So on consecutive weeks, we had an hour of television. Oh. And nobody knew what the hell we were doing. I had 3 expense accounts, because basically three bosses. Michael had 3 bosses and I had 3 bosses. But then so I'd worked with ABC, my payroll was always coming from ABC even then. And then Warner Pathé, they broke up Warner Pathé and did a deal with MGM instead. So it became MGM EMI. And the head of MGM EMI was a guy who hated television. Just hated television. Television was going to be the death of the industry. And so he wouldn't even license a clip to a television show. So when I was doing my 30-minute show with, to promote chase movies, he wouldn't have allowed somebody to have a clip to promote the new release. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So there was obviously no job. You can't do television, radio publicity if your big boss won't allow you to talk to the television companies. So Michael and I were sort of didn't know what to do, and he's 10 years older than me. And so we thought, well, what the hell? We'll set up Davidson Davidson Associates. So I was 23. We knew nothing. I don't know much now, but 23 years old, all we had was arrogance and naivety of youth. Michael had been a journalist, so Michael was an ex-journalist, so he knew that side of the business. I could hardly write, and I hated the telephone, so no idea. But so from then, that was 1970. We started, and it was very hard, as always, starting a new company.
Remember your first client, the first one who said, "Yeah, let's do it."
We continued to do some EPK, some featurettes, but the first big client was not film. The first big client was a thing called Silhouette Slimming Club, which was the UK equivalent of Weight Watchers.
Right.
And we were recommended by the head of publicity at the Elsie Studios, and he recommended us to this company, and we were very successful. There's pictures of me and Mike, with huge cigars in black tie, with 1,000 women at their annual conference. But without that, it would have been difficult. Then I think the first major client where we had to hire staff, because there were just 2 of us and a secretary, was a company called Tygon. And Tygon, Tony Tenser was, I guess, the UK equivalent of Sam Arkoff, or one of those guys who are making B movies basically. But they had some interesting stuff there, and we that was a big signing for us. And then it just grew. British Lion was a huge client for us, but there was a point where we realized that all the meaningful decisions were made in Hollywood, were made in Los Angeles. There'd be smaller films, British films, but the big stuff was coming out of LA. So the guys in London, the three Americans running their own PR companies, and they were getting the business because who's going to use a little colloquial British company? So we realized that we need to have a presence in Los Angeles. So in '75, we opened an office there. Michael, sadly, his wife had passed, and so he was left with two young boys. He didn't want to take the gamble. He wanted more security for his children. And so we agreed to split. So I basically took over the debt, effectively buying him out. But he went to Los Angeles and opened up DDA in the States for me at that time.
Right.
And then he left and ran his own shop, his own PR company. And we're still friends. I often think, what would it have been like if we'd have stayed together?
Is he still with Rogers and Cohen?
No, he's not. He left Rogers and Cohen, and he had the Michael J. Dowling Company, sold that to Rogers and Cohen, then left Rogers and Cohen, and now he just does some consulting.
All right.
He's still around. I'm 73, so he's 84. But he's like Peter Pan. He hasn't aged a day. It makes me sick.
I met him. He actually helped filmfestivals.com launch in, I think, 2000, where we were stupid enough to think we could launch video on demand. That's how we spent all the money we had raised. And of course, it was way too early. But, well, he had been pretty helpful. And
he's fantastic. Very, very, very nice man.
Yeah.
Very nice man. And as I say, when I'm in LA, once or twice a year we get together, and he sent me a bottle of champagne for the 50th anniversary of DDA, which was very nice of him. But the company was not really supposed to be Dennis Davidson. It was Davidson Dowling, but because we had the DDA logo and my name was Dennis, it made sense to have it as Dennis Davidson Associates for a while.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I changed it to DDA. Actually 1999, because my new partner died in 1999, Tony Franklin. And so I split the companies up. I split it into DDA PR and DDA Event Management.
So you have quite a big range of activities and consulting. It's not only publicity, it's also counseling. It's many things.
Yeah, I mean, in recent, I don't, I think I don't own the companies. I still have equity. I have equity in DDA PR, and I have equity in DDA Event Management. But when I put the MBOs, management buyouts, together, we all decided that I should have a label, DDA Consulting, which they own. I don't own it. They own it. So all the income goes to them. And so that would be, me working with, Chuck Roven on Batman Begins, or Scooby-Doo, or the 12 Monkeys, or whatever. I'm working with, with the studios, and then with people like the Wachowskis and Terry Malick, and Grant Hill as the producer's rep. So across all areas of marketing and consultation. But that goes back a long way. We did a film called Fitz the Cat,
right?
Many years ago. Steve Krantz, Ralph Bashley, and we did the UK, but we did everything. We designed the poster, bought the ad space, did the promotion, designed the front of house of the pavilion on Piccadilly Circus. Bought them, did everything, and we did that, quite successfully. And with British Lion, we used to do everything. I don't know. There's a poster for The Man Who Fell to Earth, the Nick Rogue film that we had designed. We had, with Hammer, Jimmy Creers, he used to come up with the title. We'd get a poster designed, and then he'd get the script commissioned based on the poster. and anyway, so we'd always been more than publicity, but certainly the last 20 years I've been doing that. So 12 Monkeys, we did the unit publicity, we did the domestic campaign for Universal, we did the international campaign, and so I worked with Philippe Hellman, UGC, PH, and all the others. We had Chuck Roven and myself spoke to the top 10 territories every week for 3 months, 4 months. So it's always been in depth. The area we've never gone into is sales. We've never, there was a period of time, probably 30, 40 years ago, when I did think about it, when I saw that the sales companies were doing quite nicely, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it because I had 40 staff who were publicists and marketing people, and I'd have to re-engineer the whole thing. So didn't want to do that.
Is there one thing that you could mention about how different it is working with majors and working with independent, besides the size of the budget, perhaps?
Well, I think, what you get if you have a tentpole movie, it's really difficult to do that through an independent network of, the local distributors. It's difficult to do it as well as the studio can do it. So, The Dark Knight or Avatar, or it's difficult to imagine trying to pull that together through the independent.
Yeah, maybe one example. You mentioned the 12 Monkeys, and Philippe Hellman was a dear friend. Unfortunately, I was running Fox, UGC Fox, and I did this movie, and I was a big fan of Terry, having worked on the Baron Munchausen, and we did our best. I think it was pretty successful. It was bigger, I believe. It might have been a little bit bigger, but it was pretty successful.
It was very successful. I mean, there was an example. So Philippe and I'm pretty sure we met actually, because I used to come in there quite frequently, and but I decided to put it into Berlin,
which I think was smart.
It could have been could have been somewhere else, could have been Venice, but the dating that we had for the movie, it made sense, and so Bruce came, and obviously Terry, Chuck, and it was very successful. But there's a little anecdote in that we had basically agreed a budget for the Berlinale, and obviously you paid a piece, and the Spanish paid a piece, and the Japanese paid a piece, And Telly Mansion, who was the German partner, paid a bigger piece, as normal. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the host country gets more benefit there, but they pay more. But the last minute, well, a couple of weeks before, I get a call from Bruce's agent. And he said, Dennis, he said, I've got good news and I've got bad news. And I said, okay, well, okay. So what is the good news? He said, the good news is Bruce is going to come to Berlin and he's going to do everything you asked him to do. He's going to do all the schedule. He's going to do everything you asked him to do. I said, fantastic. I said, so what's the bad news? He said he wants to bring his band.
He was what?
He wants to bring his band.
What? Oh, yeah. He was still playing at that time.
So I said, okay, well, what's this going to cost? So it was like 23,000 something and change. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to send a messenger a check. We didn't wire money in those days. I'm going to send you a check for 25K. He said, why 25K? I said, because I don't want to see any overages. I don't want to see, you know, bits here. It's 25. That's it. I don't want to see any more. Nothing. Not a penny more. And you know, because he wanted to do a concert. And I said, and they had a local promoter. I said, and I want 100 tickets for the mosh pit, for the distributors, and, you know, free of charge. And it has to be the night. It has to be, the concert has to be right after the premiere. And okay, all done. So I just spent 25K of your money and Telly Muncher's money, and, you know, without permission. But I've suddenly got a party, a post-premiere party, 100 people for 25K, and Bruce Willis playing. So it was, to me, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I get a thing from Kloiber. How dare you spend my money? I wish I'd kept the facts. How dare you? Anyway, of course, it was very successful. It was a fantastic night. Massive applause for the film. The distributors had a wonderful time. Demi Moore got up on the stage with Bruce wearing a white shirt with no bra. I mean, everybody was in seventh heaven. It was a fabulous evening. Okay, so that goes back to your earlier question. You couldn't do that with a studio. I would never have had the authority to do that with a studio.
The answer have come too late.
It's not the way it works. I mean, a few years later, we did the first film I did with Grant Hill and the Wachowskis was Cloud Atlas, and Cloud Atlas was very successful in all the independent territories. It was not successful in the Warner Brothers territories, which was included France. We did more money in Switzerland than was grossed in France.
Wow, strange.
I mean, it was insanity.
Yeah.
So, you know, I work very well with Warners, and, you know, we've often done films where, you know, split rights films where, you know, where I've sat at the table, or even the full studio films. And so for Korea, I put the Korean actress on the poster. Obvious. And I get a call from the people at Warner saying, oh, the French are quite interested in the Korean poster. You know, what do we do to, how do we get permission to use it? I said, you've got permission. I said, what do you mean? I said, I've just given you permission. You can use it. No. We need. I said, you have permission. You can use it. Really? Yep. So it's stuff like that, you know, that
I understand.
you get away with, you know,
well, speaking of 12 Monkeys, I'm pretty sure this event you did in Berlin was very, very strong and a very good launching pad for the film and its career, because there's so many international media. Can you name a few other examples where film festivals have been so important to the success of a movie? Because you understand, I'm a big fan of film festivals and the.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, well, the Cannes Film Festival, has been so important in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, the others, yes, but Cannes specifically. I got married in Cannes once. I met one of my wives, in fact, you know, but films like Cinema Paradiso, you know, the film was released in Italy and did no business. Gilles gave some notes why, you know, and how. Cut the film. It appeared in competition in Cannes to huge accolades. Film went on to do business everywhere and was really re-released in Italy and made money.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
So Nicole Kidman came to, and I can never remember the film. It's Gus Van Sant directed.
Moulin Rouge? No. No.
Way back. It was a she'd done Becalmed or something, and then, which is shocking. The film was Sony in the States. It was an independent. I think it was Rank, and I think Gilles had seen it, and he was sort of, yeah, maybe. Yeah. And I said, look, I used to go and have lunch with Gilles every February. January, February.
Guys, by the way, when Dennis mentioned Gilles, it is Gilles Jacob who used to run the film festival.
Oh, sorry.
Festival.
Yeah, exactly. President. Wonderful man. But I'm a big rugby fan, so I used to go to Paris for the match, and always have lunch with him on the Friday. And he would say, you know, I know, Dennis, you've got two agendas. It's the rugby match tomorrow, isn't it? And I said, yep. But somehow persuaded them to look at it again. And they did. And I said, look, you know, this is not Mrs. Tom Cruise. She is going to be a superstar, and she's beautiful, and she enhanced the red carpet. And it's a world premiere. What's not to like? That's a good film. So they did it. They took it, and the film was successful. It was a great red carpet. It was a fantastic red carpet. We did Madonna, you know, in bed with Madonna. We did.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, and the great party at Palm Beach.
Yeah, great party. You know, I took Amphar to.
Oh, that was the year we had John Singleton. We had Boys in the Hood premiere.
Yeah.
A huge hit, and I remember being assigned by Sony to be the babysitter of John when he was going to this party, because he had lots of interviews in the next day, and we didn't want him to go to bed too late or too early, name it.
So that, you know, so Cannes has been important. Berlin has been very, very, very important. You know, Venice, we've done some fantastic things, but also, you know, the more regional festivals, you know, whether that's Sydney or Rotterdam, or, you know, Edinburgh, London, you know, obviously Sundance, Telluride, Toronto. You know, I think, to me, a festival is the perfect launch. You know, most films you're going to do a junket. Well, why wouldn't you do the junket at a place where the press are there? You know, why would you do it if you didn't have to? Why would you do a junket in a hotel room when you can be, you know, have the Mediterranean in the background, or, you know, or the Vaporettos, or, you know, so adding some atmosphere. We had a non-festival thing. We took, we had Scooby-Doo, and it was going to be the end of the Cannes Film Festival. It was Warner's, and we put some ideas up, and one included showing the film in I think we went to Crete. So I want to do a magical mystery tour at the end of Cannes. So take all the journalists, the selected journalists, stick them on a plane, not knowing where they're going, and we go to. That was a bit too ambitious, but we did take everybody to Crete, showed the film in the amphitheater. Everybody had a fantastic time, and I'm probably speaking out of turn, but I think the French boss of Warner's at that point was very dismissive of Scooby-Doo, saying, "Well, this."
Was it Francis Bosflug? Who was it?
I don't know,
anyway.
But I know we got the thing saying, the estimate, the box office estimate was like 250 people admissions. Of course, I guess it was a less cynical day then, and there wasn't the internet, there wasn't the trolling stuff, but it's easier for a journalist, even the most hard-bitten critic, to not write about something if they've been on a 3-day, 4-day jolly to Crete, than to actually give it a 0 stars out of 5. So it was, they're not changing their opinion on it, but they are more benign.
Yeah.
In something like that. Then the other, sometimes with the festival, you put a film in and you get destroyed. We went to Toronto with American Pastoral, Ewan McGregor directed, and the reviews were shocking. I mean, shocking and unjustified. In that, they were criticizing the adaptation of the book, not the film itself. So they weren't judging the film as a film. They had particular ideas how the book should have gone.
Oh, to be.
And they were there, and at the same time we took Snowden there, Oliver Stone, and The Guardian were not part of the production, but we had rights from The Guardian because The Guardian had broken the original story. So we had 3 or 4 newspapers where they had, I think the New York Times, where they had been part of the Snowden tapes and got it out into the whistleblowing. And we'd screen the film to a lot of the hierarchy of The Guardian, take the film and they'd seen it, and we'd take the film to Toronto, and The Guardian give it I think 1.5 stars out of 5. So about shooting yourself. But so festivals, I mean, they are marketplace. I think you have to judge it. We've often done used, you don't want to put a film in a competition in Cannes without a great deal of thought. Doing a gala, doing the beach screenings, doing On Scène Regard, doing Semantic Critique, doing
yes, I remember those conversations every year. Should we put it, etc. Speaking of journalists, of media, is there anything you can suggest when the media has slashed your movie, has very strongly criticized? Happened to me on the Oliver Stone's The Doors.
Yeah.
It was so patently stupid. The only thing I could say was, it's a colorful piece of shit. And I wanted to rebel against that. And I did a couple of things, but is there anything you could advise doing?
No, I mean, I think everybody has a right to their own opinion. And, sometimes I get irritated, I've been careful here with the trades where, we all depend on cinema. We all depend on people going to the cinema. So, somebody's worked really hard to make a movie. It may not be a good movie, maybe colorful shit. But, there's no reason. I've always tried, because I'm not a cineast, I've always tried to see the best in a movie. And, you know, there are very, very few films that have no redeeming features. You know, it may be the film's not very good, but the actor's fantastic. It may be the music is sensational. It may, you know, there's different judgment calls.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, and it's even worse now. I think the problem today is people are trying to get their review out so quickly that they don't have time to think. You know, they're writing the review while the credits are still playing because they wanted the review out, which is why Cannes tried to change their rules on the press screenings.
Yeah, which was smart.
Yeah, it is because, you know, I defy anybody to come out of a movie without sitting with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee and just thinking about the experience. Just what have I seen? You know, how do I really feel? It's impossible to me. It's impossible. And I've seen that with, you know, research screenings where, you know, they have a focus group afterwards. You know, you come out something that's, you know, really shocking. I'm thinking of Jacob's Ladder, Adrian Lyne's Jacob's Ladder. There were a couple of moments in there where really blew your mind. And they did a focus group afterwards. This was in Santa Monica. And I drove back from Santa Monica to Beverly Hills, and I was almost shaking all the way. You know, it was so powerful, so powerful. The next day, I see the cards and see the, you know, listen to the focus groups, and they're all, you know, shocked and, you know, not articulate. So they cut the movie. They cut the movie. They cut they cut this huge antidote sequence out. Okay, it's insane. It's insane. And if you'd spoken to people 24 hours later, at the focus group 24 hours later, they would not have done that. And that was I can't remember the domestic distributor, but they were scared of what the effect of the film.
Testing is not necessary.
Oh, well, you know, sometimes testing, you know, you test if you test intelligently. So, you know, sometimes with a comedy, you know, if you don't get the beats right, people are still laughing at that joke and miss this joke. So, you know, sometimes if the whole, you know, because what I love about cinema is the infectiousness of cinema. You know, if you go and see a horror film, people jump, or you go and see a, you know, comedy. I went to see a comedy years and years ago, which I loved, called The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds. And I thought it was fantastic. I had such a good time. And about 2 weeks later, I'm in Palm Springs. I take a young lady to see it to the drive-in. And, you know, we're sitting in the drive-in. It wasn't funny because there was no infectious. There was just the two of us. So, you know, you didn't feed off the rest of the audience, which is why I think, you know, cinema will survive. I think cinema will, I think there is a pent-up desire to go to the cinema. We've just released
festivals about this tendency that has been forced upon them to go either hybrid or just digital, online, like Cannes online, AFM online. Of course, it's only temporary, but is it going?
Well, I think it's only temporary. I think that, you know, the festivals, you know, led by Thierry and Venice and the rest, you know, have done pretty well to remind people. And one of the reasons I'm going to Cannes next week is to show my support. Not that it matters that much to Thierry, but I want to do that.
Who's going to be there?
Well, I think the fact that, you know, what's bad is the French government have just closed, you know, put a curfew in. So that must be a purgatory for Thierry in Lyon, and now next week. I mean, it's a tragedy. But I still think there's a tale to tell because it's a real festival and the public will be in the Palais. They just have to move the screenings up, I guess, to finish by 9. You know, the Black Nights hopefully will be, you know, real. You know, Tina's working with the government as did Venice. You know, film production, certainly one of the reasons I've been in and out of Berlin is they're making big films there. Matrix is, which I'm doing, is Studio Babelsberg. On the other side of Studio Babelsberg is Uncharted, Sony's Uncharted. We've got to get back to normal, and I you know, I'm fairly. I don't understand why we're allowing COVID to destroy so many people's lives. I don't get it. You know, there's 1 million people have died in the world. You know, maybe it'll end up at 1.5 million, but people are going to be dying COVID for the next decade. There's no magic solution. We just have to learn to live with it. I went to Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, a few weeks ago because, you know, I'm now trying to finish my career by producing a few things. And so I went on a recce, and they've got it right. You know, you arrive in Georgia, you have a test at the airport. You know, you don't leave the airport until the test comes out. You know.
Is it mouth or in the nose?
Both. I mean, both. But I've had 15 tests since May, for various reasons, all negative. But so, you know, but then you go off, and I drove 1,800 kilometers around Georgia. Stunning country. And I've been there for 72 hours, and I'm, you know, 100 kilometers away from Tbilisi, and they find me. And they arrange me to go in at 11 o'clock at night to the local hospital and have my follow-up test. Fantastic. So the incidences in the Republic of Georgia are really low. You know, shooting a film like Matrix, or shooting, you know, so Sony has just been making a film in Serbia. Sony Uncharted, you know, they learn to live with it. You know, you put the precautions in, you know, and obviously testing is really important. But I think locking up old people like me, and, you know, I think the mental health and all the other stuff is going to, you know, kill far more people than COVID itself.
But also, as wearing a publicist hat, events that are online make your job far more difficult, I would think.
Well, I think, you know, hopefully it won't get to be a habit. You know, DDA has done remarkably well. Our year ends September 30, and, you know, it just about has washed its face. I mean, nobody's making a profit anymore, but the government here has been very good with furloughing, so they've helped enormously with the salary bills. But we've been doing a lot of online junkets. You know, the digital team have done a huge amount of work, and they have been, and people have been looking at other ways to promote. You know, you can't do the traditional thing. I think Venice, I didn't go. I would have liked to have gone, but I was somewhere else. My understanding is the journalists who went there had a really good time because they got more time with the talent. There wasn't as much talent, but there was enough talent, and they had more access to the less accredited media. So it was a win-win situation there, and I'm glad it worked, and I'm glad there were no repercussions afterwards, and I think that will encourage people. I think one of the big issues we will have for Berlin, and then hopefully not for Cannes, but we'll be able to persuading the Americans. Americans are not allowed into Europe at the moment, but I think anywhere.
And vice versa.
Tell
us a bit more about the awards you're setting up at in Tallinn at the Black Night Film Festival with Tina Locke.
Okay, so I was very privileged to be invited to on the jury a few years back. And I think at the last minute they couldn't find anybody else out of the jury, so they asked me to be the president of the jury. So I was massively flattered, and it was but it was an incredible experience. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, saw movies I would never see normally, and funny enough, we gave the big prize to a South Korean film called Excavator. So then, so Parasite. We were first with the South Koreans.
Which year was that?
It was, I think, was it 2017? I think. That's Excavator. 16 or 17. I can't remember. And then I went back with Konchalovsky. Konchalovsky's film just did well in France.
Last year, yeah.
No, just now.
I know, but his film was in Tallinn last year.
Correct. So I got him a Lifetime Achievement Award there. He came in with Julia. We showed one of her old films, and we showed Sin, or Il Peccato. And I look at Tallinn in a very commercial way. For whatever reason, most major stars will not go to Moscow at the moment. Certainly American stars. And so, the Tallinn footprint covers obviously the Baltics, Scandinavia, parts of the rest of Northern Europe, and Russia. So you have Russian journalists there, Russian TV. So I'm saying, if you take a film, you take the right people there, you can do a junket out of Tallinn that covers a very, very large area, and there's not much else. I mean, obviously it's festivals all the way over, but it's one. I don't think there's another Fiat festival around that time. I think Egypt is. I think Cairo is somewhere close. So we should reference Dubai before we finish. I love Tallinn. It's a stunning place. I love the Estonians.
Their creativity is simply amazing.
Yeah, it's sensational. So, when she found out it was our 50th anniversary, my 50th anniversary, she said, "Well, we want to do something different. We don't want to give you an award." Well, obviously not. And we had been trying to persuade her to. There's an Indian filmmaker called K.P. Kumaran from Kerala, and he is probably 80, and his body of work has always been about the enfranchisement of women. He was way, way ahead of his time. He's so far removed from Bollywood, it's hard to believe. So he's hardly known in India, mainstream India, let alone outside. But he made this film, a very, beautiful film. So I thought we could maybe get it shown at Tallinn. But the pitch obviously is that this is an Indian man who has been trying to enfranchise women in a country that doesn't always respect women. So I thought that was a really good message. It's called The Ascent of the Untouchable. And, they'd never heard of him, so none of the selectors had heard of him. And that's a pretty tough sell, but even so, I'm quite good at selling. And then obviously he couldn't travel because, Indians can't. So because of the pitch, she said, well, maybe we can do something different. Maybe, because, the world is all about diversity today, maybe we can find a way of doing something. So we talked about a number of ways of doing it. And then I realized that, apart from handing the Oscar campaign for Spotlight, that what we've done over the years, as well as the big motion pictures, we've shined a spotlight on different people. So we came up with the DDA Spotlight Award, and so this will be the first. Sadly, we only agreed it about 3 weeks ago, so it's pretty. We're in the process of making it work for this year. We have some, I'm reluctant to do it virtual. I think it says the wrong things, but then some people have not traveled since February. They just, quite rightly, it's a personal decision, and my 90-year-old mother-in-law lives in our coach house. I choose to still travel. Many people don't, and so it's a tougher selection process than I would have wanted.
And are you thinking of this as a recurrent in
yes.
Italy,
yeah.
many more in other festivals as well? Or?
No. This will be exclusive for Tallinn. It would be great. One of the things I'm trying to make sure is whoever we give it to isn't that, it will not be a DDA client. And so what we've been doing, is looking some of the stuff that was at Venice. We've been looking at, a lot of the online critics and conversations where somebody said, well, this person deserved more recognition, or that person. I think it's fair to say that we will not be giving it to an old white straight man, because that's definitely not what the world's about today. So I can't tell any more, but I'm massively humbled by it. I think it's fantastic.
That's a great idea. Congratulations. And I think it's also maybe a privilege of age.
Yeah.
Growing wiser, having served so many good stories, making them shine, get awards, Oscars, you name it. Then at one moment you stop and you think, it happened to me a while ago. I still remember my boss, David Putnam.
Yeah.
David, putting the catch line for the company I was with at the time, Sony, say, movies that matter.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, wow, that's very bold.
Yeah.
Then I saw the films he green-lighted, and he said, shit, that's not 100% movie, studio material. That's food for thought. But maybe not the tent poles or you name it. But anyway, I'm still extremely amazed that he's been pursuing that idea throughout the years, even up to now. And very humbly, to my small scale, I've learned that lesson, and I had the occasion to do a couple of first to give some animation that matters award in Cannes. We launched the animation day in Cannes before Jerome liked the idea. And I also did a series of panels making movies that matter. And we invited, and we had Wim Wenders, who was just finishing his film on the Pope. And guess what? We brought to Cannes the #2 of the Vatican, the Minister of Communication of the Pope. And we had them speak about making movies that matter. And unfortunately, Wim was much about saying, I'm not making movies in order that they matter. I'm making, he kind of resisted going into that direction. And I understood that many filmmakers, when I asked them, said, well, why are you bringing the Pope? I don't want anyone to tell me what kind of movie I should make. I'm an artist and I'm deciding. So it's important, but it has to be it has to be done in a smart way. But I do believe like giving them awards is one smart way, and it shines a light and it makes people think.
No, absolutely. I mean, one of the things we're doing with on the production side. So I've set up a production company with Dan. We haven't announced it, and I prefer it not to be mentioned. But what we're trying to do there is, you know, one of them is will be directed by a woman, written by a woman, directed by a woman, and the lead protagonist is a woman. You know, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, I've seen in my life, and I, you know, obviously am privileged to be, you know, born in England and, you know, growing up in this business. The best years, you know, I think the last 50 years have been the best, you know, the best time to live. You know, cinema's been extraordinary, but the world has been extraordinary. Yes, there's been some bad times, but, you know, we haven't had another world war, and you know, and the artistic freedom. You know, one of the things that I do find difficult now is what do they call it? The cancel culture, where you can't have a debate. You can't actually have an intelligent debate, because if people don't agree with your arguments, you know, they'll just cut you off, and it'll end up, you know, you'll be misquoted by some troll somewhere, and you know, it just hurts. And you know, we have Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park where people can go up traditionally and slammed the British, you know, slam the British government, whatever color they are, you know, and that's the right of humanity, you know, to disagree. You know, what's happened with this, you know, in France, beheading is just.
Unfortunately, the media are quite responsible in that. So
yeah, it's a good story. They sell papers. I mean, we're going through it here. You pick up the papers at the moment between Brexit and COVID. You know, on the same page, you can find more lockdown, less lockdown. Worry about the money, don't worry about the money. You know, there's no, they argue amongst themselves. So let me, so on the film festival, you know, we represented Dubai Film Festival.
Yes, you mentioned, yeah.
For right from the beginning.
It stopped, right? It stopped.
It stopped. It was one of the most stupid things, and you can quote me. You know, there were 3 festivals. There was Abu Dhabi, and there was Doha. Was it? Yeah, and Dubai. And so we represented Dubai, and you know, it was a good date, early December. It's always a problem trying to get talent because of, you know, the awards corridor in the States. But we built it up to being a very, very successful festival. I mean, you know, we had no involvement in the selecting of the movies, but you know, the stuff that they had there was very interesting. The way it was done was very interesting. We got quite a bit of talent to go there from all over, you know, and they embraced cinema, and it was just, and the other 2 festivals stopped, you know, and they had more money than Dubai, so it was very successful. And then there was some changes went on there, and suddenly we get told we're going to take a hiatus for a year. You just spent 10 years building up a festival. You're going to not do it for a year and think you're going to be able to bring it back. It's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. So that was sad. And I tried to do one in Singapore, where I was on the board. It's called Screen Singapore. And we dated that in June.
It's more market than the film festival, right?
It was supposed to be a film festival, and less of a market was incidental, but then they flipped it.
Yeah.
Because my idea was doing it in June. You could take the films that Cannes didn't have space for, not the rejects, but you know, there's only so many films that any festival can program, and still be able to get those summer big, a couple of big summer blockbusters, and we got all the studios and everybody involved, and then they moved the date to December. So I was in conflict with Dubai, so I had to resign.
Oh, yeah. May I just, I'm just remembering, and I have to tell you because I found it so funny. You remember we mentioned that, can you fight against media? And I still remember that's all about the Oliver Stone, The Doors. I was so in love with that film and
film.
work of with the work of Oliver Stone. So I was furious by this stupid and lame and lazy review. So I figure out what can we do. And I asked my agency to come up. I had an idea, which because the film opened, I can still remember the figure, 212,000 spectators the first day, which was pretty good. So I briefed Publicis. So here is imagine, give me a poster, give me an ad where it says, this film is a colorful piece of shit, signed Libération, and 112,000 people relieved, one journalist still constipated. And I told them, make it funny, because and I spoke with Duncan Clark, my boss then, and said, oh, Bruno, I understand, I've been in your shoes, but let me tell you, you won't win. You can't win against media. So, but take over the weekend and think and decide whether you want to run that campaign, because I had the plan of having speakers in the theater saying, is there anyone reading? Blah. Anyway, so what I did was awful. On a Friday evening, I called the journalists at Variety. And as you know, they used to rap on Friday evening.
Yeah.
So I told them the story. I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm pissed. And I've taken revenge. I'm going to do this and that and that. And I call him on the Monday morning, say, oh, William, or whatever his name was, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I called it off.
Yeah.
And oh shit, but it's already printed. A little smile on the phone. He didn't understand. So I had forgotten one thing. So this was Monday. I arrive Tuesday in Cannes, and I see Variety, the bumper. On the cover, local distributor fights against reviews. And they had put this on the front cover, had interviewed Oliver Stone, say, oh, Libération will always trash me because they think I didn't go to Vietnam, blah, blah, blah. So, and it was, and some people tell me, oh, you know what, in Portugal, you are a hero because, anyway, they took the story in a couple of places. Why don't you win? I thought I had won, but I'm insisting that you can't win. That same guy saved was probably responsible for the international success of Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
Because when Gilles called me saying, yeah, you're in Certain Regard, I said, wow. I was surprised, first time director, first film, and I said, but I talked to my publicist and say, shit, I don't know a thing about black cinema. Find me someone who can know something and help us. And she found him, that same guy. And he was the first guy in the world to see the movie. He started talking. We started screening discreetly before Cannes. It was a major hit. In Cannes, we turned out 1,500 people, and end of the market, the festival, Frank Price, the head of Sony, shook hands with me and said, Bruno, thank your team, because I'm going to revise the box office estimate. I had 30, I'm going to put 50 local box office. So basically we're saying 20 more million for US, maybe 20, 25 for international. Cannes produced 45 million bucks. And basically that guy was probably at the beginning of it.
Yeah, well, that's true. So you go back to why, festivals can make a difference without question. Putting a proper campaign together with a festival, working with the festival to make everything happen, is important. We showed you too in 3D.
Oh my God! That's my best memory in Cannes ever.
Yeah, we had, having the band, the band called me, well, not, the vet called me, because I was trying to persuade them to play a couple of numbers on the Canal Plus stage by the Martinez, because that was easy and cheap and simple. Yeah. No, we're not going to play. We're not going to play. Not going to play. And literally on the Monday of Cannes, I get a call saying, Bono wants to do it. He wants to play Cannes. Wow. I said, oh, fantastic. He wants to play on the Palais steps. I go, oh, shit. On the Saturday night. So I sent an email to Thierry and said, we need to meet. So I went over and he'd assembled everybody, security protocol, it was one of those big meetings. Because we'd shown the film to Thierry. We'd shown 30 minutes to Thierry in Los Angeles, I think in January. But they thought it was all about just what we're going to do with U2 abiding, because that what we're going to do with the red carpet and all this. So I said, well, they want to play on the steps. Mm-hmm. Now, with due respect to the French, normally that would be no, not possible. Everyone goes, oui. It was unanimous. They were going to make it happen. And the following day, the trucks started coming down from Switzerland with all the gear, and we built the stage. And but it had to be sliding off because obviously the audience for the day, you had still a 7:30 screening and the 10 o'clock screening. So all the people coming up and down the steps. And they came out and played. It was magnificent, actually magnificent.
But how did you succeed in keeping this almost a secret? Because I don't recall. I was caught by surprise. I had my ticket. I had invited a couple of friends, and I was there saying, "Oh, I don't understand. We're waiting. Why are we waiting?" And I said, "Oh my God, look at there. There are tons of equipment. I mean, something is happening, and we didn't know." That's very, very.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. We like those things.
Oh yeah, and that year, those were the days of what do you call that? This 3D world.
Yeah.
So we had filmfestivals.com had reproduced the Cannes Croisette and the Palais. My office in the Palais was reproduced 3D in net. What's the name of strange?
VLD?
No. This platform where you would take an avatar and it will come back if I'm not trying to figure out. And we had reproduced. We had the U2 concert on the red carpet of the modelized 3D.
Yeah.
On that platform, and we were screening things in the environment was totally crazy, but restricted to 25 people. So there were things that we loved exploring. Of course, it was very gratuit.
Yeah.
But it was fun. So it's not darknet. It's anyway. Maybe the final question. What is your best Cannes memory, Dennis?
Well, I have to say, getting married in the Hotel de Ville by the mayor of Cannes. But second to that, okay.
Because
it was the close. Sorry.
U2 is already a pretty big thing.
Yeah, but for a thing that I was not involved with, and it's genuine. The closing night of Cannes a number of years ago was this unknown film called E.T. And it was a closing night film, and there'd been very little spoken about it. It had hardly been screened. Nobody really knew that much about it. But I went and I couple of seats right next to the jury box in those days. And Jean-Jacques Hano was on the jury that year. And I was blown away. That to me was true entertainment. I was absolutely blown away by the movie. I thought it was brilliant. And you could sort of hear the murmurs in the jury box, and almost saying, not actually saying, but almost saying, well, finally a great movie. But that's, but it was an extraordinary experience, and it just reminds you why we're in this business. Something that just took my breath away. And we always used to have a day off at the end of the festival. We used to take all the staff to Saint-Tropez or somewhere, or depending which way the wind was blowing, we'd go on a boat to Villefranche or somewhere. And I do remember walking around Saint-Tropez, and we were going, phone home. Yeah, so that's probably one of my greatest experiences in
Speaking of Spielberg, that's something I very frequently give as an advice to filmmakers. That my first film festival in Cannes, I was sitting in the front rows with my boss. I was marketing director at the time, and in front of us was actually Steven Spielberg sitting there. And my boss, at the end of the film, taps on his shoulder and says, "Hi, Steven, I'm Steve. We met in Cannes." And we started speaking for 5-10 minutes. And when this was over, I asked Steve, "Did you actually meet him in Cannes?" He said, "No." And I think that's, guts.
Yeah.
And clearly it's about, are you part of my world? If you are part of the Cannes world, you're part of my world. So you can talk to anyone. I always also give another piece of advice: hide behind the camera and go for an interview. "Mr. Spielberg, may I shoot an interview?" And he probably will say yes. And provided there is no publicist around him.
There's no guards, and
What would you?
I think that's the other thing that's changed about everywhere. We used to go. I think it was called the Circus, the disco in.
The Circus, yes.
Yeah, and you go there, and there'd be everybody there. Michael Douglas, there'd be all, every star would just go, and they weren't bothered. But now you can't.
That guy, the owner, because I did a couple of parties there, Paul Pacini was the guy who had this studio in Paris where Jim Morrison died or was not so well before he left, whatever. So
no, there was you can't look back in that sort of old way, but it is different. For sure, it's different. But I remember when it was quicker to send a runner or run yourself from the Majestic to the Carlton than try and get through on the switchboard, because it was the old plugins, and you just couldn't get through, and there was no mobile phones.
Yeah.
So the communication was much more difficult, but maybe it was a sort of more innocent time, so it was an easier time. There was more.
Has changed. May I ask a piece of advice for our filmmakers? There's probably few persons that know Cannes better than you do, and when you start telling people, even if you're not with the major, if you don't have a distributor, Cannes can bring something for you, or Cannes can be interesting, and they say, no, it's a big festival, it's expensive. Do you think Cannes can help?
For sure.
Any situation, I would say. More.
Yeah, for sure, and it doesn't need to be expensive. It really doesn't. The first time Spike Lee went with his guys, they stayed in the hotel by the station. Not the best of hotels. I think a year later, maybe 2 years later, he was at the Ducap. He learned very quickly. But you don't have to. And I think the difficulty is getting attention to your movie. If you're, but the Cannes is a great window for films, as is as in a certain regard, and so you automatically get the publicity.
But even if you're not in any of these selections, would you recommend to try?
If you're in the market, it's really tough. It's really tough. We used to do premieres at the Olympia. Right. We had Elizabeth Taylor there, literally doing red carpet at the Olympia a few years ago, and we used to do the Amphib after Cliffhanger, when we were basically, if you remember Cliffhanger, sold tickets for that first Amphib.
100 francs.
Sorry?
It was a big argument.
Huge, because it was
no one had done that before.
Because it was the American Foundation's AIDS research. So, we're giving, I think 50% of the proceeds went to the French AIDS charities. But they were very, very pissed. And so that was the one and only benefit I believe in the history of Cannes, where they sold tickets. And slowly but surely, then the next few years we did do screenings at the age-related screenings, films at the Olympia, and then it just started being too difficult because you couldn't do, getting people from there to the Moulin and then now to the Ducap. It just became too difficult, and some of the film companies dropped out. That first one, although it was Sony and TriStar and Carolco, the Cliffhanger, everybody else, all the other, Fox, everybody had tables there.
Speaking of tables, we had a table there, Columbia had, and all my friends there, bosses, Ted, Duncan, Tony, you name it, they say, they were tired, too many things to do, blah, blah, blah. So I said, anyone want a ticket? So we ended up giving out the tickets to our secretaries, and they had a great time. And I thought, this is pity. But one thing you don't know about this event, I was handling, on the other side, Sly, who was at Ducap, and had organized his appearance at the Canal Plus thing and the Majestic, at the Martinez. Yeah. And I had someone I knew from Monaco giving us or lending us a boat, like 50 meters long, a huge thing for free, of course. But it was so big that they could not go, of course, from Ducap. So we had to take 15 cars from Ducap to Port Conto, and then take them from Port Conto up to Martinez. And those days we didn't have any mobile phones, and I get a walkie-talkie phone call from one of my assistants saying, "Hey, Bruno, we have a major problem. Our boat is there, but there's a bigger boat. He wants Stallone. He won't move. And he says he'll take Stallone in, but he won't move." And for some reason, anyway, I say, put him on. And I spoke with the guy. For some reason, he accepted to move away. So we had our boat, and we take the right place. When we come in there, we had all the entourage. I was sweating because the company was Ambassador Cars. Yeah. The boss, Laurent, had an accident with the Mercedes, and he had the list of who goes where. And we didn't have photocopies. We'd worked hours on who goes where. So I had to reinvent everything in front of the entrance of and Stallone said, "Yeah, but that's not my car. Don't worry, go there." Right. So we go there. And then one of his agent, a woman, I can't remember her name, walked on that $1 million boat. Not million, 50 million boat. And she keeps her shoes on. And she had stilettos, and she did ping, on the lever. The guy was like this. Then stupid idea. I asked Stallone, "Would you like to drive the boat?" "Yeah, sure." whoa. And so we lost time.
Yeah.
And same guy with his walkie-talkie, Bruno, where are you? You're late. We're due on live on television at 7. It's 7:02. I said, you see the helicopter saying, welcome Sly, welcome to Cannes, right underneath. And we're basically at Les Reims. Oh, Jesus. And said, well, I'll ask them to play the trailer again. So Canal Plus played the trailer twice.
Fantastic.
And we arrived right in time, and they showed to Stallone his Muppet in the Canal Plus show, and there were so many. And then at the closing, when we came in the theater, I had organized firemen to climb down from the Palais, like 5 of them, like in the movie. And when we came out of the movie with Eye of a Tiger song, there was fake snow. I mean, those days you could have fun and play. And then at the end of the day, best day in my life.
Well, the backstory of that is that
the back of the backstory.
Columbia said we couldn't take Cliffhanger to Cannes, and so did your office, because it was going to be Arnold's Cannes.
Oh,
so it was going to be Arnold's Cannes, and therefore we were not allowed to take it. So Ted Shagru called me at home in London, said, what the fuck are you doing? You can't do this. You're not allowed to do this. And so I called Mario Cassar. I said, Mario, it's up to you. Do I proceed or not? He said, yeah, proceed. So we did. And then what happened, Columbia TriStar, Medavoy eventually then decided to come in. And, one half, I think they came first. Was it American Hero or something?
Last Action Hero.
Last Action Hero. So that, I think, had the first week. And then we had the second week for Memory.
It was kind of closing, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, because all the posters, all your advertising, all the billboards, all the triptychs, everything was changed overnight from one film to the other film, because they were both yours, both Columbia TriStar. But Ted Shagru was so angry, screaming down the phone at me, saying, you can't do this. Yeah, I can.
Well, like that same year, Gilles Jacob screaming at me because of what I did with Arnold. I had this inflatable, I wanted to have an inflatable Arnold.
And somebody shot it.
Yes, and it was a 15 meters high thing on the barge. And you know how much it cost? It cost 5,000 euros, 25,000 French, including the guy who was 24 hours looking after and the electricity, blah, blah, blah. And Gilles said, no, you can't have that. We have authorities, and no, you can't. I mean, this festival is turning too commercial. Look at the hotels, it's ugly. No way. Yeah. And then I called the Maritimes, the port authorities. They say, where is your authority starting? And they told me 200 meters. Say, all right, we'll have the boat at 201 meters. And we did it. And the next day, that's the virtue of publicity. When you do things right, even without a big budget, it made the news, it made the front cover.
Yeah.
And we didn't have enough to spend. Actually, if I do remember, it was all about more than Last Action Hero. It was about launching SDDS, the sound system.
Right. Yeah.
And they rented the theaters and had a couple of excerpts of a film showing with supposedly SDDS.
Yeah.
Say more.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Exactly. Good. So is that
wonderful, Dennis? It's fun as usual, and I'd love to read your memoirs. I'm sure it's a lot of fun and great memories.
Yeah, though sadly there's no digital. It's only published through Blur, and it's a hardback. It's actually a proper
Right.
book.
When did you publish it?
When it was literally on the 50th anniversary of DDA, so that was like September 7 or 8. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, I'll try to get one, and I'll come back at your office next year in Cannes, and you'll sign it for me. If you...
I will sign it, and you know, if I say so myself, you know, one of the reasons it's called 50 years in cinema, because that's what I've done. You know, I started off in the cinema, and you know, ending up in the cinema. So I think it's relatively interesting. There's quite a lot of fun stuff about Cannes in there, and Berlin.
There are lots of amazing things, I'm sure, that you could not say there. But
yeah, no, there's going to be a companion book, because there's going to be the X-rated companion edition, but that's not going to be published until 5 weeks after I'm dead. Good to chat.
Thanks.
I will see you in Cannes or Berlin or somewhere.
Maybe Berlin,
okay.
Or maybe, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Stay in touch.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.